For your Wednesday, partly sunny skies, scattered shower around late afternoon, daytime high near 87, mostly cloudy overnight, temperatures near 72 for the low, clouds, limited sunshine for your Thursday with a scattered shower in the forecast, temperatures in the low 80s. Have a great day, everyone. From the Watchdog, I'm Darnell Foster.
Hi, this is Shauna Johnson from Metro News. Join us weekdays on the Watchdog Morning Show with Howard Monroe for the latest regional news from West Virginia and beyond, along with news and weather from WTRF-TV and Bill DeFabio Sports. We give you the Ohio Valley's most comprehensive morning news right here on the Watchdog.
Text us or call us with questions or comments. Your Wheeling No Two Ways About It continues on the Watchdog.
All right, you're listening to Your Wheeling, No Two Ways About It, here on the Watchdog, 1600 AM, 98.1 FM. I'm Chad Thalman, Vice Mayor of the City of Wheeling, in the studio with co-host Mayor Glenn Elliott, and our guest today is Councilman Ty Thorngate. Before we get back into the meat and potatoes of the show, there's one thing I wanted to mention. The Federal CARES Act is going to provide some money to the City of Wheeling, which will be distributed to nonprofit organizations. So if there's any nonprofit organizations out there that are dealing with the effects of COVID, you can contact the city's Economic and Community Development Department at 304-234-3701 to request an application packet to receive some of this grant money. So again, it's for nonprofits that are affected by COVID. You can call the city's Economic Development Office at 304-234-3701 and ask for an application packet. When we left the show, we had talked a little bit before the commercial break about OVMC. Councilman, you're chair of the city's marketing committee. You guys recently had a meeting to kind of discuss marketing the OVMC campus. How did that meeting go?
Right, so just as a little backstory, it was the first time, we kind of resurrected this committee. It was the first time we had met, it's the best word in a while. It had been a while since it met. Now, obviously, when they adopted the city charter in '92, the city did not have a marketing coordinator that worked for the city. I believe it was Mayor Shane hired Susie Nelson as the first marketing director for the city. So that role kind of took over what you would consider the marketing communications would be. I kind of think the role has shifted a little bit with Michelle, where she specializes in the PR and communications side. So with buying with OVMC, obviously, it's time now. We don't want to sit on this property. We're looking to do what we can to offload it and have a developer come in and take care of everything else. So we had our initial discussions. And one thing that I kind of wanted, with my background in marketing, that the times have changed. And if you look at the ways that you have to market real estate now, it's not the same as it was maybe when the city did it 10 or 15 years ago. And no longer can you kind of just send out a pamphlet to someone in hopes they can find it or whatnot. So the internet's going to be a huge tool in how we're going to market this facility going forward. So in our marketing committee meeting, we're looking at new ways to name the property. We don't always want to have healthcare tied to it. If a healthcare person wants to come in and take over, that's great, but there might be someone that sees a vision differently than the healthcare facility. So looking for a new name for the property, and what creative ways that we can market it moving forward. And obviously the internet's going to be a big portion of that. So we'll need new photography for the building, inside and out. Or that means we could bring in a drone to help see the scale or whatnot. Will be a huge portion of that. So that's kind of the first thing we talked about, on top of building a website and where we can host the photography and send people. And if you look back even to what we did at the 1400 block, how was that property found? It was found on the internet through stories that Weedlog had been writing. So
it's thinking about OVMC, Counselor. The sort of the challenge is, and getting the word out of it. It's identified locally as a medical campus, right? I see its uses as many. It could be used for medical purposes, but there's a lot of space, a lot of office space in there, which could be used for other purposes. I think there's some parts of that campus which lend themselves to housing. But getting the word out, I sort of had on the one hand, you want to make the case that, yes, we have a former hospital facility which is coming available, but you also want to sort of separate it from people's minds as only being for medical purposes. What's the challenge in that, and what do you think we should do to sort of overcome that?
Well, a big thing for me is obviously is being able to focus on the internet, and whether that be some advertising. There's ways that you can target people. One being people that search the internet or their job titles list that they are in real estate or commercial real estate development. That's number one. You can also target people based off their income. So you could say, I want to target people that are interested in real estate that are also in the top 10% of income earners in our region. So, I mean, those are creative ways. But like you said, I mean, for some people, you want to keep the medical aspect of it, but I think there's a good chance here that it's going to be diced up a little bit. Medical is not going to be the only thing that's in that facility.
Moving away from the OVMC campus a little bit, there's going to be some potential zoning issues that are going to be addressed or dealt with upcoming in your ward and around your ward. The most widely known one is the GCMP development. This is, the Hilltop development. This is something that's been discussed for at least, I want to say, a minimum of 5 years. We've been hearing conversations about that development going on. What's your take on that, Councilman? That's not exactly your ward, but it's basically bordering your ward.
Right. I'm kind of all over the place. I mean, I see the vision that the developer has there, but there's still a lot of questions I have just in terms of blasting that's now been put out there. There will be blasting work that will take in. And then just the overall timeline of the project where it's going to take 5 years to mine and log it with a potential there'll be development after that. I would hope that this isn't something where they're just dangling a carrot in front of everyone and putting, something shiny out there to allow the mining and logging to happen, if that's their goal, versus an actual development being on top. But I'll be honest, going through, like you said, it's been 5 years. So even before this last election, you hear a ton about it. And then going up to this election, I didn't really knock doors in that area just because of COVID, but when I was hanging literature out on streets and talking to people, I really didn't have a single person that came forward and said, I support this as it stands.
Yeah, that's one that's been very controversial that I'm not sure has the support it needs to get across the finish line. There's going to be potentially another zoning issue coming up. In the Washington Avenue area, there's a lot that's zoned residential that I think they want to change the zoning to EMO, which is, I believe, education, medical, office space. I believe it would be a dentist office. I have not heard any real pushback on that proposed zone change. What have you heard?
I haven't had anyone reach out to me, but I did see with the Planning Commission, I think there were 3 or 4 residents that did have some concerns, mostly just the safety of pulling in and out. It's a kind of a weird spot where like West Washington Avenue connects with Washington Avenue. So, the drawings, the artist rendering look great. But to me, and it's the same way that I did with my vote with the bank and church property. If the residents around there have concerns, ultimately, I don't feel like you guys could feel differently here. I don't feel like I was elected to vote what I think is right. I'm voting to what the residents want. So,
Mayor?
The Washington Avenue proposal is very interesting. I agree. I thought the rendering, I was impressed that it did sort of look like it fit the architectural integrity of that neighborhood. It didn't look like just some all glass and steel building going into a neighborhood. It looked like a house that was sort of used for an office. So I thought that was a good start. Obviously, it's always a fine line here. On the one hand, you want to protect the integrity of neighborhoods. On the other hand, you want Wheeling to be a city that's open for business and says yes to development. And I think we have to balance that. Now, in this case, of course, the Planning Commission has yet to act, and I think it'd be premature for us, any of us to prejudge it, but, I'll see what the Planning Commission does with it and go from there. But from what I saw, it didn't look like a major impact on the neighborhood in terms of sort of competing with what's there already. If the traffic issues can be worked out in a way that are satisfactory, I think it'd be hard to say no to, but, we'll see where it goes.
on the surface level looking at it, my number one concern would always be parking, right? Washington Avenue is already at a premium for parking, especially towards the coffee shop and Avenue Eats and areas like that. But with the rendering, there's I believe parking space for 50 spots and behind it. So that would be a big concern that you checked off.
Yeah, zoning changes can always be very controversial. Sometimes the neighbors seem to support a zone change. Sometimes, like the case of the Edgewood, which used to be a church, now is an abandoned church. There was a proposal to make that into a bank. City Council denied that zone change by a vote of 4-3. Councilman Thorngate, you voted in favor of denying the zone change. The mayor and I were in the minority that voted in favor of the zone change. That area is still an abandoned church. No other developer has come forward to put anything else there. Have you heard any other comments from that neighborhood? Are they happy that the bank is not there?
It's been a while since I've heard from anyone in the neighborhood, but the last impressions there were whatever we can do to help. Because look, there were different factions going in here. Obviously, you had some people that didn't want anything to happen with that property. You had others that were okay with development, but thought maybe a bank isn't the best for that area. But they still realize that something's going to happen there. Going back to the people that felt like they were in support of some development, I mean, they're willing to do whatever they could to help the property owner come up with something. My personal preference would like to see some type of commercial mixed use where you'd have like basically that mirrors the opposite side of the street. You'd have some type of commercial development on the first floor with some housing above it.
All right, we got about 8-9 minutes left. One thing I think it's the first time we've had you on since your reelection. Looking back over the last 4 years, some highs and lows. Any votes there, Ty, that you're really especially proud of that stand out to you over that first 4 years in office?
Right. Well, I'm sure we can all agree. I mean, the number one of the non-discrimination ordinance. It was an incredible night we had at Wheeling Park. I was shocked at how many people came out and in support of the non-discrimination ordinance. Where I thought it might be 50-50. There were rumors that Westboro Baptist Church was going to come and out front and hold their sign.
The gentleman from downstate who has tormented other city councils made threats of coming as well. I can't think of his name right now, but he never showed up.
Right. So I mean, that's one. The Legion is another one, just to go to show you that you can give someone a second chance, and they'll come back.
You're talking about the American Legion.
Yeah, the American Legion in East Wheeling. There hasn't been a complaint since it happened, right? I don't think I've.
That bar has really turned itself around. It was something that we received complaints on almost weekly when we first got elected in 2016, and then after the city got involved and kind of encouraged in the change management, I think it's been a huge success story for that neighborhood and for the whole city. And
I can't look back on any vote we've had where I thought like, oh man, I really made like the wrong decision there. That was stupid. I mean, obviously, one that comes to mind is the building height rule for the commercial district. And at the time, I didn't see any issues with it. I mean, there were some people in the community that did, and we went back and didn't say that we were wrong. We revisited and put something in there that would allow someone to build a building under 3 stories. But throughout that process, there wasn't a single person that filed for an appeal for that. So I don't know if it was as big as an issue as it was made out to be. But yeah, there isn't anything that I look back on that I thought like, oh God, I really made the wrong decision there. What about you guys?
Mayor, what's your proudest moment?
Well, Councilman Thorngate steals some of the thunder here. I mean, the non-discrimination ordinance to me was something that I think at least the 3 of us and others had said when we were running in 2016 that it's long past time for the city to do this. I believe among the candidates running for mayor at that time, I was the only one to say that. The others said there was no need for it. So it was something when we got elected, we set about doing it. We had several public hearings. I'm very proud that you alluded to the meeting in the White Palace at Wheeling Park. I was worried going into that it was going to be a very unpleasant experience with a lot of name calling and threats and accusations and all that. But really, I think we have 400 people show up at the event, 45 people sign up to speak. I remember these numbers vividly because to date they still shock me. 45 people signed up to speak, 38 spoke in support of that ordinance. If you had told me a year, 2 years out that would be the case in Wheeling, I wouldn't have believed you. But I think I think back to the Martin Luther King quote that the time is always right to do what's right, and I think I'm glad we did it. I'm very proud of us for that, and I think none of the horror stories that the few people who opposed it predicted have come true.
Right.
The sky's not falling at Wheeling. There's no bathroom assaults taking place. Someone came to council and said the bathrooms are going to be unsafe for their kids, and all these horror stories. So I'm very proud of that vote. I think it was very important that we make clear that we are the friendly city. I wish our state would follow suit. I don't know why they haven't. It frustrates me to no end, but until our state does follow suit, at least we have separated ourselves from that. And the Legion vote is also something that, before we got elected, there had been a shooting at the Legion, at the American Legion Post 89 in, I think, 2015. Somebody got killed. When we took office, there was almost weekly emails. I went to Crime Watch meetings. You'd hear from the chief. Almost every week something was going on up there. And, we basically, the police chief recommended that they be deemed a nuisance. The city manager accepted that interpretation, that it came to council for our final decision. And council, we sat down with them. We sat down with them and said, you guys need to have new management. I thought the current manager at the time was not doing that organization any favors. They agreed to that. We said, here's a list of other things steps you have to take. Some of those steps were as simple as just cleaning up the building. I mean, they painted the building.
It looks beautiful now.
Yeah, it looks great. I don't think in the 3 years since there's been a single serious police call from there, which is rare for any bar.
Right.
Most bars have some sort of incidents. So it's been a complete success story. I can't say enough about the people at the Legion who've turned it around and really turned it into a contributing part of that community again, as it always had been. And I'm proud of council voting 7-0 on that. So I think those two stand out. There are others, the decision to buy OVMC, I think the jury's still out on that. Did we make the right decision or not? But I know it was a big undertaking for us to do that. And, I went forward with what I thought was the best decision at the time, but only time will tell on that. But that's a big decision to make, to take on that as a city and ask the taxpayers to be responsible for this massive industrial complex here is a big deal. But I think we made the right vote. What about you, Vice Mayor?
Yeah, I think I would just repeat what you guys said, with the non-discrimination ordinance, the Legion vote. It certainly was not a popular vote, the user fee, but I do believe we did the right thing. It was probably one of the most difficult votes we ever took. Raising taxes as an elected official is probably the hardest thing you can do. We did it. The tax increase went into effect 6 months before an election. I think I give everyone on council that voted for it a lot of credit. I think they had a lot of political courage to.
Was it 5-2?
It was 5-2, I believe.
It was 5-1.
Okay, that's true, 5-1.
I believe Councilman Scotty was unable to attend that meeting.
Okay.
So, yeah, it was an unpopular vote, but I strongly believe that money is needed for infrastructure and for first responders. So I give City Council a lot of credit for having the courage to move forward with that vote. But the music's coming on. I think we know what that means. The show is winding down. You're listening to Your Wheeling, no two ways about it, here on the Watchdog, 1600 AM, 98.1 FM. Stay tuned in.